In the last few sessions, there was this kind of feeling, especially not this one, but the one before. And I was like feeling, okay, me and Natasha, we are in this, it's this Western, but it could almost be a spaghetti Western. And in the first session, I was completely misaligned with my character because Farid was, in my head, he was like a Nubian character who had moved north up to the desert of Egypt or something like that. And halfway to the session, I was like, okay, no, 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 this is not what we are doing. That's when I said, this feels like a Western. I was like, okay, I got it wrong. It's completely different.
Oh.
So I was getting more aligned quickly. And the last few sessions, there was this stark contrast between our situation and Webserg's situation, which was kind of moving into the folk, rural horror movie situation. It was doing, and I was really enjoying that because I liked the genre, and I could see how it would easily, snowball into something like what it did in the end. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam.
All I have to say is I'm not the one who ran you into that pit. You're like, I run right into the pit, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I was trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Well,
I don't really see any way out of this for you.
I think that I want, like, when I get to be a player, I want to be the player that I want to see in the world,
Right.
So I want to play a character who's gonna basically run themselves into the dirt. But I did love, I will say, I loved how it did feel like when I threw myself into that pit, like you kind of took that, and actually there were real consequences.
Oh yeah.
It was interesting how the world felt kind of real in that way, and there wasn't really a way out for my character. So I think part of the reason that Vevstel compelled herself was me saying, no, I think she should die now because she ran herself into that pit.
Well, it's an interesting question. You probably have a lot. I mean, you just implied you had a lot to say or think about from playing the game. I'm curious what you have to say or think.
Yeah, I have a hard time voicing like what I'm thinking, but I guess I'm trying to like design a game right now. It's horrible to say or admit because whatever. It's a strange tendency, but I love this game for the way you roll the dice and there's no saving yourself from the result of the dice. Like I played Circle of Hands this weekend, and it has a similar feel of the dice drop, especially charm. The charm roll drops, and you're like, Jesus fucking Christ. And I that's what I really loved about this game. The clear, like, if you fail, this is precisely what happens. Because so much of the games that I've seen really like venerated and I guess popular hype RPGs it's like we're designing dice out of games like frantically, and so I don't mind a little bit of weird broken edges as long as the dice like actually make the game out of my control. So I love that.
The principle in question I call bounce. And the important point is that badly designed dice systems don't provide bounce. They just provide bullshit or nothing. Right.
Right.
And so, we've played games where the dice really are intrusive in the sense that they literally do shit that makes no sense and is no fun to cope with. And then you have games where the dice are so massaged. Lorenzo and I have been talking about this a lot. The dice are so massaged through other mechanics that they might as well just not be used. And and so to find a game where when you find a self-published game like this that relies on a lot of dice rolling in very specific ways, and clearly they have thought about failure. They have thought about what failure means. And when you encounter that, you know that they played it. They may not have played it into 20th level, but they played a lot of it at some level. And they have a fair idea somehow of what the interaction of talking and dice is supposed to do. And that's something that I care a lot about. My trajectory in game design began actually with rejecting what back in the 90s they called roll versus roll. Roll with 2 L's versus roll like a theater role. And they said, there are the dice rollers, and then there are the role players. And
I'm glad I wasn't alive then.
Well, it was a huge mantra, and still is. There's a commenter on Anthony's Star Trek videos.
I've seen this. Yes.
Who hates my guts? I don't know who it is.
Yes.
But he hates my guts like you would not believe. And his whole thing is, well, we play games for stories. We don't play it to roll dice. Right. And I don't even read the comments on Anthony's YouTube, at all, because after one try, I was like, my God, he is infested by larvae, and I have no intention. No intention. I mean, he's trying to be patient with these people. I'm like, don't be patient with these people. My God.
Yeah. And so, oh my God.
But the point is that is still alive and kicking. That notion that, why do we have these? These are holdovers from wargaming, right? These are holdovers from wargaming. They're crap.
Right.
People who can't make stories need those to help them, right? So, which, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of people who criticize comics because obviously it means people who can't read need pictures to help them. Which is the traditional criticism of comics as a medium.
You still see a lot of people saying stuff like, last section was so good, we barely rolled it.
That's been going on for ages. It was a great session. We never touched the dice. Well, we've been talking about that at the Forge for a long time. There are systems out there where the dice mechanics and the procedures of play are deadly boring or deadly dangerous in an unhelpful way.
Sure.
Right. And so those do happen, and people who've been, scarred by it are going to find some other way to play. So, I can understand sort of the history at work there. But anyways, I think this game has a lot to teach, right? People who play this game will come away with notions about, well, I never thought about it that way, or I don't want to do this, but I know what I want to do because of it, or it's an interesting it's a very enlightening game because you know that they loved it, right? The people, have you seen Sam, you're not a patron, the other two are, but we've been having a conversation in the patron chat, maybe some of it's actually in the public chat, about the game Legendary Lives, which some people are finally starting to read. They're finally starting to read the game, and they're going, no wonder Ron and the other people have been playing this thing. You cannot fail but to be sucked in by the author's love of this thing, right? You can't fail to be sucked in, and then its quirkiness, or in my opinion some design flaws, appear, and you learn from them rather than hating them, right? So it's you can say, okay, anybody, what am I supposed to do? Expect a perfect game from everybody who's basically inventing the medium through doing it, right? Right. What do you expect? And so it makes you, I think, playing a lot of these makes you really appreciate games that take risks and maybe don't always succeed in this or that part. And say, you know what, I'd rather do that. I'm tired of these perfectly crafted, smooth blend, comfortable, the story will bounce along nicely, don't worry, we'll get through the adventure, kind of experiences.
The thing I've encountered the most along with that, I think when people talk about control of the story, the most actual sacred thing to them is control of their character and how their character is allowed to look and behave. Like, I've played with so many people who are terrified of their character failing, and I think that I think a lot of people claim that it's, oh, we're making a nice story, but I think it's really like I have a vision of my character from the moment I sat down, and if that vision changes, somehow I've like been
Right.
hurt or something.
Well, this is
I
a
don't
very
personally
tricky thing.
understand it, but it's very strange.
It's a very tricky thing for Sorcerer, because the essence of Sorcerer is that when you make up the character, they are, for as far as what they want is concerned, they're succeeding.
Right.
They're succeeding, right? They're doing this horrifying thing, or at least disturbing thing, by having this demon,
Right.
but it's working.
Mhm.
And then you write a kicker that says, how does everything change? And it doesn't even have
Right.
to be a danger to destroy their lives or something. But I have noticed that one of the difficult things about playing Sorcerer for many people is that they frantically struggle to re-normalize their character to pre-kicker, right? So they try to run away or solve everything easily or whatever. And you're like, wait a minute, you made that up. I didn't make it up. I got to do things with it, but you handed me
Right.
this in the presumption that your character's life, as you knew it, is going to change.
Right.
You handed that to me. Don't come running to me or come keep trying to play to erase this and make it all go away now. Right? That's
Right.
not going to work.
It is a strange tendency that I think is really common, and I don't really understand it, because when I get to play as a player, I'm like, oh my god, let me like, I'm finally like playing as one person. I'm gonna like fucking throw them at everything.
Right.
But yeah, it's
Right.
really I don't know. It's strange.
Well, there are some histories, some history there. Part of some games is that you are effectively promised fun later. And to become powerful and then to play some more and become more powerful is the draw, or at least you think it's the draw. And therefore, failing means getting knocked out of that enjoyment. Right? And that may be part of it. There are also issues. If you have a game in which what's going to happen is pretty much going to happen, you will investigate. Sooner or later, you will get all the pieces. Sooner or later, the mysterious attacks that you're, encountering will become less mysterious. Sooner or later, you will find out that the deal's being done at the warehouse at midnight, and you're going to go there and be involved, in the climax, right? And so if you're in one of those, failing isn't going to change the story at all. It means that everyone can make fun of how dumb your character looks. So everyone's trying not to be the person who fails while we get our way through this. And so these are, in my opinion, these are more or less dysfunctional modes of play that don't just go to the making fun of the character who fails. They go back to the fact that failure wasn't going to make a difference. That therefore the story is not produced through play. The story is the story's in place, and play is being busy until Jesus comes. Right.
Oh my god.
And that's the one thing. Why would I spend my time with such a thing?
Well, first of all,
yeah,
go ahead. You're talking to the wrong guys.
And what I wanted to say was, I ran my first game of Circle of Hands. I had this cool haunt, and she was like going to do all this cool shit, and she never got seen because the only tripwire got tripped, and it was the adventure was done. And I just, after the session, I was like, I felt this joy, like, yeah, this cool thing that I had is sitting there and will never be seen. And I don't know, it's I think there is this idea that people come into a game and they're like, my character is about something, or my character is going to do something that is interesting. And yeah, failure, when it makes them, usually failure in a lot of games means you just kind of trip or whatever, and then you get on to the thing you're doing.
Right, it
kind
a
of
speed
messes
bump.
up.
Right.